What's up everybody, Ash here for the Triple S League with a review in progress for A Plague Tale: Innocence, a new single-player adventure game from Asobo Studio, published by Focus Home Interactive. This game has been out for less than 24 hours, and I have not had the chance to get through the entire thing, especially since I've also got Rage 2 on my plate right now. Look for reviews on that in the near future as well. Anyway, I'm just about 3 hours into A Plague Tale, and I wanted to give you my initial thoughts about it as well as a solid general idea of what the game is all about in case you are considering purchasing it for yourself. Currently, it's reviewing very well, and I will also be giving it a generally positive review, but it is definitely the kind of game that is not for everybody, so I recommend sticking around to see if this is the kind of game you think you'd enjoy. If you're interested in a full review once I've had the chance to complete the game, definitely hit that like button, let me know in the comments below, and also subscribe to catch future content. Alright, so A Plague Tale: Innocence is first and foremost about the story. Not that the gameplay is bad, but it is definitely secondary to the primary purpose of the game being a delivery vehicle for a compelling story, and they do a pretty good job to that end. Set in medieval France, A Plague Tale overlays real historical settings and events with a thin layer of mystical fantasy. The world, the characters, and the atmosphere are very well designed and very well realized. The environments are detailed and beautiful and a lot of fun to explore, especially if you appreciate a medieval setting. However, it's the relationship between the adolescent Amicia and her younger brother Hugo that's the real glue that holds this game together. Starting out as near strangers due to circumstances I won't spoil here, the two are thrust into a dangerous adventure that pushes both to their limits. A key feature here is that the two must stick together and trust each other in order to survive and accomplish what they need to accomplish, but along the way, the stress of the journey starts to take a toll on their budding relationship, with Amicia losing her patience with Hugo more than once, and Hugo's childish naivete leading him to rebel in dangerous ways. Both the conflict and the attachment between these two characters feels real. Hugo, the young child who's been a shut-in most of his life, only partially understands what's going on and is angered by some of the difficult things his sister needs to do to keep them alive. And Amicia, despite being incredibly mature for her age, has little experience with her brother and doesn't fully understand what's going on with him either. And yet there's a trust and a bond between them that transcends their lack of familiarity with each other. A bond that stems from the fact that they were raised and loved by the same parents, despite difficult circumstances that kept them apart most of their lives. Seeing that bond preserved has become my primary goal as I continue with this game. As far as child characters in games go, Hugo is incredibly well realized. He feels authentic, reacting like a real child would in many situations. As you're walking along or exploring, he'll run off after something that captures his attention or give some entertaining commentary about the situation as he sees it. This leads to some truly endearing moments, such as when he sees horses up close for the first time in his life.
They're really big.
They won't hurt you.
What are those noises? Are they sick?
It's the relationship between these two characters that keeps me playing this game. Not that the gameplay is bad per se, but so far it's been nothing spectacular either. You control Amicia, with some indirect control over Hugo, and your primary tool for combat and solving puzzles is your sling. I'll admit the inclusion of a sling instead of a conventional weapon, like a knife or a bow, is an interesting idea, but at the end of the day, it's basically just a point-and-click means of interacting with the world. I don't mean to say this as a criticism so much as I just want to temper your expectations if you're considering purchasing this game. This is not an action-packed, combat-focused game. It's a stealth and survival game. There are some fairly intense chase sequences, and even a boss fight that took me a couple of tries to figure out, but mostly your goal is to avoid danger and keep your brothers safe. And I want to give massive praise to the developers for finding a way to pull this off without making it feel like a giant escort mission. I mean, technically, I guess it is a giant escort mission, but Hugo doesn't cause the kinds of problems that we all dread when we're told to protect some NPC in most other games. He basically has two modes. Either glued to your hand, which is way less awkward than you might think, and staying where you tell him to. He gets scared and becomes noisy if you move too far away, but he will actually stay, which is nice. So nice. The gameplay itself is mostly comprised of stealth challenges and environmental puzzles. So far, these have been pretty easy, mostly involving precisely timed movements or finding the right thing to fling a rock at. Again, I'm only 3 hours into the game, and my hope is that the puzzles increase in difficulty and complexity, perhaps eventually offering multiple solutions. And I've seen some hints that this may be the case. In my third hour of playing, I acquired a new kind of craftable ammunition called Ignifer, which can be used to set things on fire. And there are still a lot of empty spaces in my inventory wheel. I'm very curious to see what else this game has to offer in terms of things I can fling at high speeds. Also, I've discovered that the enemies have some interesting mechanics in the stealth sections of the game. You can fling rocks and pottery to distract enemies away from their posts or patrol routes, nothing unusual there. But if multiple enemies hear the same sound, they'll converse with each other about it, and only one of them will move to investigate. Furthermore, the guards will become more and more suspicious each time they hear an unusual noise. If you attempt to distract the same guard 3 times, he'll call all of the nearby guards to come help him search for a potential intruder. This can cause problems for you, of course, but it could also be an interesting way of distracting all the guards in an area at once. I haven't had the chance to test all of the ways that guards react in certain situations, but I definitely see the potential for some very creative situations and puzzles if the game allows for it. Finally, there's the rats. Again, it's a pretty simple mechanic. You basically have to stay in the light to avoid getting eaten by these light-phobic vermin, but the atmosphere it creates to have hundreds of these things scurrying around in the shadows with their glowing eyes is pretty freaky and pretty awesome. Basically, Dishonored can eat its heart out. From a technical standpoint, I haven't discovered any major bugs or glitches thus far, but the game does appear to be capped at 30 frames per second, which is disappointing. And I don't even understand why, especially if you're able to run the game at ultra settings on PC. Such a low frame rate doesn't do justice to the beauty of the game's environments. The biggest question I have at this point is whether or not the story or the relationship between Amicia and Hugo are affected by choices you make, such as whether or not you choose to kill certain enemies. There was one point where Hugo reacted poorly to something I had done, and after thinking about it, I wanted to go back and see if he would react differently if I did things differently. Unfortunately, by that point, I had already hit the next checkpoint, but I'll be watching for more of these opportunities as I progress through the game, and the result will definitely factor into my final review. I feel it would be a huge missed opportunity if your actions don't have some kind of impact on the outcome of the game. A Plague Tale: Innocence starts off a little slow, but it didn't take long for me to become completely gripped by the characters and the story. If story and atmosphere are at the top of your list of things you want out of a game, this one is probably a good choice. The stealth and puzzle gameplay is a little bland for my tastes, but bear in mind that I'm the type of gamer who plays Dishonored on hard mode. Still, I have yet to become bored, aside from a few times during the tutorial sections right at the beginning. If a lighter challenge is more your speed, this may be right up your alley. I'll elaborate on the game's challenge level in my full review once I've seen the rest of the game. For now, I think the most important thing I can say is that 3 hours in, I will definitely be seeing this through to the end. I need to see what happens to these characters, even if the game refuses to challenge me in any way. If that's the kind of game you like, definitely give this one a look. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, sub, and hit that notification bell, and then check out some of these other videos. Find the link to our Discord server and other important stuff in the description below.
Rotated.